Well, hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, everybody, and welcome to At Lafayette Live for Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. That's right, it is indeed Tuesday. If you are one of our regular viewers, if you tune in every Monday, you will, of course, know that it is not Monday. So thank you so much for joining me here on Tuesday, not our normal day of the week. But it's been a crazy couple of weeks around here in the Gooch household, and it has been tough to get things together for Monday. I was feeling sick one week. There was something going on with the kids another week. So it's been a while since we've had a show, and I really, really hate that. I really like the idea of being on Mondays at 7 o'clock and that we're on your calendar for that regular date night to hang out and talk about all things Greater Lafayette. But I thought it was uncouth to wait yet one more week. That and there's a logjam building up of things that we need to talk about. We weren't able to get a show in. I was out of town yesterday, so that is why we're on a Tuesday. So if you have never watched before, welcome. And if you're one of our regular viewers, thank you so much for moving us a night to Tuesday. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. So if you haven't joined us before, I'm Jeff Gooch with the Russell Company, powered by App Properties, and I'd love to help you find home here in the Greater Lafayette area. And whether it is that you're looking to buy or sell a home, do a little bit of investment, which I strongly recommend, I'd love to help you out with that. And that is really what feeds all of this, and why I come to you is that puts food on the table for the kids. That's why I'm here. But that's what this show is about. I follow all this development news here in the area. I follow the news in general. I talk to people making the news when I can. Talk to the people getting input on decisions about zoning and what development is coming here to the area, and give my opinions on what's going on, bring you the facts, but also give my thoughts on what's going on. Bring you news on housing and all of that, and we're going to dive right in. But before we dive in the chat, drop where you're watching from. Love seeing where people are watching from, and since we're on a couple of different platforms, not all the chat always gets conglomerated together in the same place. So I'm kind of got to watch a couple of screens here, but I know that we got some regular watchers from unique places all around the country. Got some expats from Lafayette living in California and Texas and Florida. There are, of course, people who are watching from here in the Greater Lafayette area, and certainly appreciate that. I'm just trying to get my phone going so that I can kind of have a confidence monitor in front of me that the stream is indeed working. Yep, looks like it is. Fantastic. So let's get started, because I mean it's already 7:03, and like I said, I have a lot to talk about. We'll start with fun news. Purdue, often known as the cradle of astronauts, their cradle has had to increase to take on yet another two people. So NASA just announced a new class of 10 astronauts, and two of them, 20%, are Purdue grads. They are Adam Furman, who's a major in the U.S. Air Force, and Yuri Kubo from here in Indiana, from Columbus. Yuri has 2 degrees from Purdue. He's got a bachelor's in electrical engineering and a master's in electrical and computer engineering. And let's see, what degrees does Major Furman hold? A bachelor's in aerospace engineering from MIT, and a master's in flight test engineering from the U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School. Oh, he's got his master's in systems engineering from Purdue. Okay. So there you go. Congratulations, Purdue. And if you have kids that are thinking about it would be really, really cool to work in space, Purdue's not such a bad place to go to school. No doubt about that. And if you think that's cool, it's also really, really cool. Hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content that we put out here on the Lafayette Reel and at Lafayette Live. Every Monday at 7 o'clock, except for this week when it's Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I've been in the community for a long time, and for the first decade or two, Purdue spent a lot of time talking about the fact that rankings don't mean anything. Yet now they do, and Purdue has been ranked number 46 in the U.S. News and World Report rankings of U.S. colleges and universities, and that is rankings of public and private universities. The Purdue ranks number 19 between all public universities, and is, of course, no surprise here, I think, to anybody in the Greater Lafayette area. Sorry, IU grads. Currently ranked top for Indiana's public institutions. So I thought that was pretty cool news. And I know that if you're watching this show, chances are you might have some connection to Purdue. Maybe you're thinking about moving here. Maybe you're a professor looking to take a job here to teach. Maybe you're a student thinking about coming here. But Purdue is very, very big in the community. No doubt about that. We have a lot to talk about, and some of these are going to be a little more in depth and a little longer than others. So any of you enjoy the farmers markets that we have here in the Greater Lafayette area? We get to enjoy 3 of them. On the weekend, there's the original OG Lafayette Downtown Farmers Market. West Lafayette, of course, has their farmers market, and there is also an on-campus farmers market every week in season at Purdue University. But the farmers market is going to host a winter market this year. It's going to be the Lafayette Winter Market, and they're going to host it once a month, January 10th, February 7th, March 7th, and April 4th from 8 a.m. to noon, held in the atrium of the LAR building there on, I believe it's 5th and Main, if I remember correctly. So we'll see some off-season farmers market. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to sell. If maybe some farmers will have backstocked some produce that is shelf-stable and will hold till that time. I'm certain that there'll be some local craftsmen and artisans selling stuff there, but if you love to frequent the farmers market, you can keep doing it throughout the winter this year. I believe the farmers markets are closing down for the season soon-ish. I'm not sure if it's this week or next week or at the end of the month. There'll be a little bit of a gap, November, December, but you know, it's the holidays, lots of stuff going on. Before we move into some more controversial topics, let's just call it what it is. Hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos here on At Lafayette Live. Do you know how many we put out? I don't, because we put them out all the time. It's hard to keep track. We're in the hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds at this point. Next up, we're going to talk about SK Hynix. Dun, dun, dun. SK Hynix is a South Korean manufacturer of chips used in AI systems. They're a large provider for NVIDIA, and they have a foundry coming to West Lafayette. They've needed some zoning changes made on their preferred site, and it has engendered a lot of controversy amongst neighbors to the point that they are suing, the neighbors that is, are suing West. They're suing a lot of people. Who are the plaintiffs in the case? They are suing to stop this. They are suing the city, so they're suing the city of West Lafayette. They're suing SK Hynix, Purdue Research Foundation, and the Area Plan Commission, I believe, are the defendants in the case. There were 2 complaints. They were combined into one case because they're going to be heard in the same court with overlapping material and decisions. So they held a hearing last week, checking the dates here, a couple weeks ago now, on dismissing. The Area Plan Commission thinks that they shouldn't be named a defendant and wants off the case altogether because their role was advisory to the city, and the city is the one who makes the final decision. But the lawsuit basically is stating that that the city council and the other defendants ignored the evidence and made their own decision, I think is the way that I would make a synopsis of it. I'm going to probably tick some people off by putting it that way. But of course, the lawyers made their case, and The judge said that he would have an initial decision on dismissing or not within about 30 days. So we're looking sometime around the end of October. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I have some friends that are lawyers. That's about as close as I get to claiming that I, be a legal professional. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express once, sort of thing. It feels like this is the sort of thing that's going to stand. The Area Plan Commission heard and made their recommendation. The City Council heard all of the input and voted. It just has the feel of something to me that the judge is going to dismiss. I'm not saying if he should or should not dismiss, other than to say that, SK Hynix has kind of said, like, if not Site B, which is where the rezoning is, maybe we'll go back to Site A, which already holds the zoning requisite to this chip plant. What do you think about that? If you want to risk the ire of your neighbors, if you want to put your foot in one camp or the other, I'd love to hear from you. Maybe even talk to some of you on the show in a few weeks, depending on how this court case goes. But there is a lot of development coming to the area on the backs of this SK Hynix factory, the Millbrook subdivision that is going in just north of SK Hynix is going to bring somewhere around 1,000 or 1,100 doors, much needed development to the neighborhood. That's in its economic development for the area. Should we not? We're going to see. Okay, moving on before I stick my foot in my mouth anymore. Another controversial topic. What do you think about when I say rainbow trout? Think tasty, right? Yummy fish. I'm honestly not sure if rainbow trout are tasty. I know that trout is a dish that I've enjoyed. The specific variety I'm not sure of. But no, we're not talking about the tasty fish. We're talking about a large 120 megawatt size project of solar panels out on the west side of the county. And this is one that was actually denied by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the companies that make up the Rainbow Trout Solar Project have decided to sue to have it overturned. So we were talking before, Area Plan Commission issues advisory opinions and decisions to their constituents, to the cities, and to the executives for the county. And then those bodies are free to make their decisions as they see. But the Board of Zoning Appeals is kind of the court of, not a court, but it's the last stop on the train. And if they say yes or no, then there is no other authority to appeal to. So when you appeal the Board of Zoning Appeals decision, you go to the local circuit court. That's the way the system's designed to work, for better or worse. And these companies have contended that the decision denying them their zoning appeal is not based in fact, has no rational basis, committed errors, and abused its discretion. Those are legal statements. So they're going to have a hearing, and they had a hearing to decide on some rules and some evidentiary items and some process stuff, and they're going to meet again in about a month and a half from now on December 1st, and we'll see if that gets overturned or not. Again, not a lawyer, not a judge. I wouldn't even hazard a guess on which way this one falls. I don't know how the circuit court is going to feel about this one. And I mean, and feel is not the right word. They don't decide things on feelings. They decide them on laws and facts. So we'll see how that goes. Will the Rainbow Trout Solar Project move ahead, or has it met its demise? We're going to find out. Stay tuned. And you stay tuned by hitting the like and subscribe button so that you know when we put out content about Rainbow Trout Solar Project and SK Hynix and the new farmers market coming this winter to Tippecanoe County, to downtown Lafayette. Continuing on with development news, feels like we're moving fast and we're moving slow at the same time. But that's what happens when you don't have a show for a few weeks in a row. I'm going to pronounce some things wrong incorrectly here. So if you are involved with any of these projects, any of these companies, any of these people, I apologize in advance. I do not mean to pronounce anything incorrectly, but there is some new development news. There's some new development happening on the south side of Lafayette that we have new news on. There's a company called Sustainia is going to co-locate a plant on the south side of Lafayette. I've got next to the Primient facility, the corn processing facility. If you're in Lafayette, you will know that is Tate and Lyle. Some of us might know, if you live on the south side, is one of the places that the smell emanates from. I'm not a scientist. I'm going to read some of this. I'm probably going to get some of this wrong, but they have a new technology that they're going to, instead of making this material out of fossil fuels, they're going to make it out of dextrose from corn. So what this decision does is they're going to bring in this plant that's going to be part of, adjacent to the existing plant down there, and they're getting a pair of 10-year tax abatements, $159.1 million for the real estate and $207.6 million in equipment. This is on a 16-acre site, and you get 100% break the first year, and then over 10 years it steps down by blocks of 10 a year. The project's been on the books for a little while. It was first announced a year ago, back in October. The build process, they're going to employ about 191 people when finished, about 95 of those people coming on board. They're saying average salary is going to be $96,000 a year, so that sounds like some pretty good paying jobs. So I think that's exciting that there is. I talk a lot about here in the Greater Lafayette area about how we are not just a hub of education with Purdue University, that in some ways Purdue could get up and leave town and we would be fine, because we have such a diverse manufacturing base, that we've got some old school manufacturers and we have some high tech manufacturers, and this one really kind of straddles the line, right? Because they're taking a process to make something that's been made historically out of fossil fuels, and they're going to take it out of a byproduct of something that we're doing here in the community already. So I think that's a pretty cool dichotomy going on there. But the reason that they're co-locating with Primient is because, here we go, I'm just going to read this. They are producing a renewable plant-based alternative to petroleum-based monoethylene glycol, or MEG, that is used in textiles and food packaging. Exactly how it's used in textiles and food packaging, I don't know. Maybe I'll find out one day here, but it's going to be more development for the area, more jobs for the area. Going to need more houses here in the area. They said the process takes about 42,000 bushels of corn a day, that Primient processes at first, and then it heads over to the Sustainia plant. So then they ship that on to the final customers who actually use the material, the MEG that is made there. So I think that's interesting, more development, and this is development coming to the south side. We've kind of been focused a lot on the west side, north of the west side, the last few months, with SK Hynix taking up a lot of oxygen out of the room. So this is good development news. I think, new manufacturers, new employers are good for the area. And hope you do too. And if you do, hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss updates on all of this. And I should say that those tax subsidies the tax breaks have been approved. I'm not sure if I stated that up front or not. So moving on, this is just a little bit of fun news. Have you ever been to the Christmas parade in downtown Lafayette? If you haven't, I highly, highly suggest it. It is kind of indescribable. It is the largest Christmas parade, maybe the largest parade in Indiana. It just goes on and on and on, and I mean that in a good way. I'm kind of making it sound like it just never stops. No, it goes on in such a good way. It's just never ending. There's so many participants, and it's at nighttime, so they all have to incorporate lights into their floats and costumes and everything. It's really, really, really fun. It goes down Main Street. Everybody's there. I've watched it from the street. I've watched it from a second floor window. Really, really love it. But if you or a group that you're involved with would like to march in the parade, Greater Lafayette Commerce, who sponsors the parade, have opened applications. Applications are due by November 7th, so you have about 3 weeks. Entry fees are $50 for a commercial for a business, $10 for a nonprofit, and if you are a government or public safety entity, you are free. There are a lot of fire trucks in this parade. You can go to the link below, or you can go to greaterlafayettecommerce.com for an application. And then if you're not going to be in the parade, you should pencil in the evening of December 6th to be downtown to check out that parade. And if you're watching, and if you're a friend of mine who happens to own an Airbnb or an apartment or a second floor business on Main Street and might be interested in hosting a party or co-locating a party or letting me rent the place for a party, I think my last contact that had a space that was usable for that, I think he sold. So I would love to host a party up on the second floor overlooking on Main Street. So I'm going to take this opportunity here to, for all of you who tune in regularly, or if you're new to the show, I'm going to reach out to my friends for a favor here. So if you're watching and if you know of something, or if you know of somebody that knows somebody, I'd love the connection and the introduction. I'd really like to look into hosting a party for the Lafayette Christmas Parade on December 6th this year. All right, thanks guys for that, for indulging me a little personal ask there. Moving on through development news, and I should say that there is an Area Plan Commission meeting tomorrow night that I have the agenda for, that there are some big things on there that we're going to talk about that I didn't want to talk about this week, because right now if I talked about them this week, they would be up for approval. But in 24 hours, they will be approved, and I would much rather be able to say this has been approved, this is happening. We're going to talk about that on next week's shows. So as much as we're talking about here this week right now, there's actually another handful, 4, 5, 6, not small development-related items that we're going to be talking about next week. Because like I said, I know they're on the agenda, and barring the truly unexpected, they will be approved tomorrow night by the Tippecanoe Area Plan Commission. And of course, at that point, they're going to have to go to either the Lafayette or West Lafayette City Councils or the Tippecanoe County Commissioners for approval. But most of the time, once you get through APC, I wouldn't call it's not a rubber stamp, but the system is set up to work that way. All right. But in development news, and one of the things that's going to be talked about, but that I want to talk about now, is large data centers. So they are going to add an amendment to the area plan, to our unified zoning ordinance. They're going to put in an amendment to create a definition of large data center, which currently doesn't exist, to separate the land use from what is a computer programming and data processing services category. And this is to help be able to control development of these large data centers. Because this has been controversial in other areas of the state, there's some large data centers that are going in, and residents really kind of push back because of their electricity and water requirements, which I do understand. We want to manage those processes. At the same time, I do rather enjoy all the people complaining on Facebook about data centers, and just want to say Facebook is data centers. You kind of can't have, the internet without data centers. Now, am I saying that we shouldn't thoughtfully plan where these go and the water and electricity usage? Yeah, absolutely. But, if you want high-speed internet with giant processing power, that data center has to go somewhere, and they've gone in a lot of places already. So a lot, a lot to talk about there. But they're considering this amendment, and I believe as they've got it structured right now, it's going to give them a 1-year pause. It's going to sunset, so that they can study this and figure out what to do so they can write a more permanent code over the next year. I might have that detail a little bit wrong. I'll report more on that in detail after the approvals come through. But if you're concerned about data centers coming here to Greater Lafayette, this is one that the Area Plan Commission is actually trying to get ahead of before we're facing it. That being said, some of this carve out is I'm actually coming to you over fiber internet being provided by Windtech and Tippecanoe. First off, I love Windtech and Tippecanoe. I love my internet company and I love my electric company. I know that's a weird statement to make, but their uptime is just phenomenal. And on the very, very rare occasion that I lose power, I see linemen out almost instantaneously. Tippecanoe is an amazing company, and Windtech, who they bought to help support their fiber rollout, is an amazing company. Windtech has been a part of our community for a very, very long time, even before Tippecanoe bought them. They have a data center on the south side. It is not huge by some of the standards that we're talking about, but it's not small either. Which is to point out that all the stuff that we do online has to go somewhere, and I'm talking about the Googles and the Apples and the Facebooks, Meta, all of the big companies of the world need somewhere to stash their data and do all the processing power to make all of our social media go, to make YouTube go, what we're watching on right now, to make all of that go. And likewise, our local businesses who rely on our local technology partner, Windtech, for local data uses need somewhere for all that compute power to go. It's a big question without a lot of easy answers. I'm kind of not joking here. One of the billionaires, forget which one, suggested that once they get their space company up and running, that data centers will go in space. I don't think that's much of a joke. I'm not saying that's happening tomorrow, but there's a whole lot of things that we talk about that are limited by resources that are available here on Earth. And with our burgeoning space industry, maybe it's possible that resources on Earth stop being a little less of a restriction. Again, that's starting to look pretty far afield, because we're not talking about tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. We're talking about a decade from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now. But this is a little screed that's gonna go a little off the rails here. I try to remember when I'm talking about any of this development news to put it in perspective. Anything that we're talking about that affects us: data centers, solar farms, power plants, steam-powered turbines, cars, electric cars, charging, oil, petroleum, all of that has been around for a mere blink in time compared to the history of the world and compared to the history of human civilization. We've only had flight for a little more than 100 years now, to kind of put it in perspective. So it's kind of important to remember that change is kind of inherent. The world that we live in today in 2025 would be unrecognizable to those living in 1925. Can you imagine the magic of an iPhone to somebody? And likewise, the world that people lived in 1925, especially urban folks, people that lived in downtown Lafayette, but people lived in Chicago and New York, their lives would have been unrecognizable to those in 1825, and so on and so forth backwards. So should we give thought to where data centers and solar farms are located? Absolutely. But we should also keep in perspective that today is but a very, very short blink of time. And whatever technology it is that we're using today is going to be woefully out of date sooner than you know. Sooner than you know. All right, I told you that was a little bit of a philosophical diversion there. Not sure that'll get cut up to be used as anything else. Continuing on the development front, gas stations have been a topic of discussions. There have been a lot of gas stations that have come to the community, and some vocal citizens are kind of like, enough, no more gas stations. So the city of Lafayette asked the Area Plan Commission to please consider a zoning ordinance to limit gas stations, and they did indeed create that, and it included things like no new gas stations within about a mile of existing gas stations. They increased the setbacks. They added decommissioning plans and all of that. APC passed it. City of Lafayette passed it. I don't think City of West Lafayette has passed it yet. But the county commissioners, and they are the executive body responsible for all of Tippecanoe County that it is not in a city or a town. So that's not Lafayette, West Lafayette, Dayton, and Battleground, and I feel like I'm missing one. County commissioners said no, that was too much for them. The county is a large area, and that mile radius was a little big for them. Now, that being said, they were interested in things like improving the decommissioning plans. So they have asked APC to go back and do some more work on it and present an ordinance that they could get behind for the unincorporated county areas of Tippecanoe County. So they're not completely uninterested, but that's where it stands at the moment. No new gas stations within a mile in Lafayette, but that does not apply to unincorporated Tippecanoe County. But it does apply to hitting the like and subscribe button. Most of you that watch aren't subscribed. The statistics show it. So please do me a favor and subscribe. It really helps out a whole lot. All right, moving on. The city of West Lafayette started a study to figure out some more information about single-family homes and rentals in West Lafayette. And they've conducted a study, and they have released the initial results. And what they have looked at is homes that are zoned R1, R1B, and R1U. They have looked at how many of those are in their rental program, and then they have looked at how many of those are claiming homestead exemptions, which you are only allowed to claim on your taxes if that is indeed your primary residence. You cannot use that exemption on a rental. And they've released some initial maps. So let's take a look at those. I haven't looked at this on here, so hopefully these show up well. We'll look at one other view. Bear with me. Both of these hide the... That one's better. Okay, sorry about that. The legend is actually down here, but all of the deep purple is R1U. So that's primary residence. R1B, just R1. Sorry, just R1. The lighter blue is R1B, and the dark purple is, or the lighter purple, kind of the magenta color here, is R1U. That is the less interesting. That just shows residential zoning, single-family residential zoning in West Lafayette. But where it starts to get interesting is here. All of the blue is non-rental. All of the coral is rental. There are probably no surprises here. This big area down here, this is Purdue University. Look at all the rentals down here. This does not surprise me in the slightest. And then there's less and less rentals as you go out. There's a little bit of rental here in U Farms, U Farms up this way, but in some of the neighborhoods here. Lots of student rentals here close to Purdue University, then it thins out. Then a lot of these rentals out here, everybody of course can rent them, but I think that you would probably find a large percentage of these rentals are staff, temporary, not temporary, but relatively new hires in the academic staff, associate professors, lecturers, that sort of thing, but by no means 100%. But again, this is just within the West Lafayette city limits, and so some of this that we're looking at is actually outside of the city limits, but this is kind of shows what that looks like. And I don't have the breakdowns of the percentages here. And then the final, I think this is the final one. This is the ones that are claiming the homestead exemption. So in this map, the dark blue, the dark blue is homestead exemptions, and the lighter blue are not using the non-homestead exemptions. And so anything that's dark blue, what that should indicate is that the owner lives there, because they are the person that is entitled to use that homestead exemption. And that if you are not the owner and primary resident, that you cannot claim the non-homestead. So theoretically, this lighter blue should relatively closely line up to those that are rentals. What they're trying to look at and see is to make sure that those do indeed overlap, that if you are claiming the homestead, that you're not using it as a rental. And then what are they going to use this information for? Well, they're using it to help drive, housing decisions and zoning decisions, and what developments the city really needs to help with, because they want to know, what does the housing market actually look like? How many rentals are available? How many homes are available? What's the population size? And, if you are a renter, are you actually rented? So the statistics are this. The rental program in West Lafayette, which you are obligated to register under, and if you're not, then you're technically breaking the law, has 938 homes in the R1 districts, or 21% of 4,431 properties that are in those zones. Nearly 75%, 3,316 of the 4,431 are claiming the homestead exemption. 25% did not. So 75% claiming homestead exemption, 79% not in the rental program. So there's a spread of 4% there. Not terrible. The chief of housing here in West Lafayette said that those that are not registered as rentals and not homesteads are 256. So they need to follow up and see what's going on there, and that rentals that clearly are using the homestead deductions, there are some there were 105 total that were found to be in that situation. 43 weren't rentals anymore, and the paperwork just hadn't been updated, and there's a further 62 that they needed to check on. So, some actual data about what housing looks like in West Lafayette. I can't get a house, they're all being rented. No, that's not the case. Of actual single-family homes, 75-80% of them appear to be used as single-family homes. So what do you think about that? There's more development coming to the area. There are more homes coming to West Lafayette, if not in the city limits, within the zip code, for sure. Excuse me, goodness. Before we move on, have you hit the like and subscribe button? If not, how am I supposed to know that you're watching? And I'm Jeff Gooch with the Russell Company, powered by At Properties, and it means so much to me that you're here every week here watching At Lafayette Live, and I'd love to help you find home here in Lafayette and West Lafayette, anywhere in Tippecanoe County or the surrounding areas. The city of West Lafayette has agreed to fund an expansion of the wastewater plant. $8.1 million in bonds for new designs to increase capacity at the for West Lafayette waste treatment. They're going to go from, get this, 10.5 million gallons a day to being able to process 15 million gallons a day. And Dave Henderson, who runs the utilities in West Lafayette, and he's a great guy, says that they'll be able to handle about 20 years of growth with that expansion. And that does include being able to handle wastewater from SK Hynix. Design is going to take about a year, and then they'll get it bonded and they'll get going on all of that. We don't think we have the exact time frame of when that's going to be built, but more wastewater treatment coming to West Lafayette. Talk a lot about transit here in the Greater Lafayette area. City Bus is our local transit company. They run buses throughout our community. They had a falling out in the last year with Purdue University, and so Purdue is now running their own on-campus transit. But City Bus, of course, still overlaps that because Purdue is part of our community. But they had to announce last week that City Bus is suspending the connector route, Route 41, I believe it is. And this is the free route that basically ran along 26 along State Street from West Lafayette out to downtown. And if you've been here long enough, it was once upon a time the trolley. But they don't have enough drivers. And that Route 41 they looked at and decided, in light of how they needed to staff and what they could staff of all the rest of their routes that they needed to serve, that this is the one that they had to cut. They're hoping to maybe bring it back next year, but right now the connector route and the free bus that runs between Purdue University and Lafayette is no more. This makes getting around Lafayette and Purdue University a whole lot harder, and it makes the sell of homes for staff and students off campus that want to rely on public transit even harder. I'm kind of to the point that I'm not sure that I can recommend it. I'm not saying that I can't, but it's a lot harder this year right now than it was at the same time last year. And boy, believe me, I feel for those who rely on City Bus to get around, and I feel for the City Bus staff who are just trying their hardest in really difficult circumstances to provide a necessary service to the community, but dealing with state budgets and city budgets that just are not keeping up and being cut, and you cannot squeeze blood from a turnip. So it's a really, really tough thing. But if you're relying on the connector to get between Lafayette and West Lafayette, it doesn't exist as of right now and won't for the foreseeable future. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news about that. As we continue on through our evening here on At Lafayette Live, hit the like and subscribe button. I know I say it a lot, but I'm not saying it enough, because are you subscribed? And if you're interested in home here in the Lafayette area, go to thelafayettereal.com/YouTube and let's chat about your needs for home here in the Greater Lafayette area. All right. Purdue President Mung Chiang has just received a raise. They've extended his contract. They've extended his retention bonuses. He has been president of the university since 2023 and had a contract through 28. First contract, 5-year, ran through 29. And now they have extended it into an evergreen contract where it will basically keep rolling until either side decides that they've had enough of each other. So Purdue seems rather happy with their president's performance. The previous president, Mitch Daniels, set up a program where some of the president's pay was at risk. They had to meet metrics that were set by the university, and it was always the question of, are they setting metrics that he could actually fail at? But this past year, the president actually failed at some metrics, and the board still gave him this extension and this raise because they said, the president and the university were facing these headwinds based on events outside of their control, things that are happening at the federal level, that are happening at the national level, economic problems and everything, and the performance of the university and the president met their expectation. They didn't meet the benchmarks to get the additional compensation, but they're happy with him. So as of January 1, 2026, President Chiang will get a $600,000 base salary and then another $300,000 that will be at risk against the goals and metrics that are laid out. He started back in 2023 at $420 with $210 in the at-risk pool. But he's also going to have, looking at these numbers here, in retention bonuses, $500,000 for every year that he stays president, as of June 30th of the previous fiscal year, and they will grow by $50,000 each year. So they want to keep him around. The contract is for $1.4 million for the first of the 5 years if he hits all of his metrics. And he didn't last year, so it could be less than that. That does not include the House, I can't think of the West, it's not West Point, drawing a blank, vehicles and other side benefits. But not bad. I think he's been a fairly effective president. I think he's done a fairly good job of navigating the controversies that have been swirling. I think some would say that he hasn't done a good job because he hasn't spoken up enough, and there is a strong case to be made for that. I would not argue against that. But there's also a certain amount of, how much of what you say is going to be heard and listened to and affect change versus just putting a target on your back. And that is not to say that we should, sit silently and do nothing. Not saying that at all. I think that he's kind of walking a tightrope and is perhaps doing the best that anybody could do, because the alternative is to not be there and not help manage the organization's way through such difficult times. But there you go. President Mung Chiang getting a raise. And if you'd like to give me a raise and would like to buy a house here or sell a house here in the Greater Lafayette area, go to thelafayettereal.com/YouTube and fill out the form. Some actual housing development news that was approved at the Area Plan Commission's executive committee meeting last 2 weeks ago now was some more work in Research Village over there on the west side of the Purdue campus. This is somewhere that you can actually live and basically be at the Purdue campus. It's not cheap, but they're gonna they laid out the plans for phase 3, another 52 single family with front load garages, 14 single family with rear load garages, and this one is new to the community, 34 single family townhomes. So more to come on that, but if you'd like to live close to the Purdue University campus, I'd love to go tour some of those homes with you when they come available for sale. But that was actually approved, so we'll see frames going up soon, very, very soon, I would imagine. Okay, we're going to move on to our big segment. That wasn't a big enough segment for the evening, and that is a market update for the real estate market here in Lafayette and West Lafayette in Tippecanoe County. And we're starting to get some movement here in the market. And just as a reminder, I am Jeff Gooch with the Russell Company, powered by At Properties. And if you're interested in a home here in the Greater Lafayette area, I'd love to help you buy or sell your home, your investment home, pick up an investment portfolio. But go to thelafayettereal.com/YouTube and fill out that form. And then we're going to talk about what the market looks like. Hey, Jeff, is the market crashing? Hey, Jeff, can I get something for a steal? Our local market continues to be strong. We're seeing some movement in numbers, and I'm going to talk a lot about, is this a blip in the data, or is this the start of a new trend? And, we'll know in a few months, because real estate is cyclical. It's seasonal is really the right word. It's tied to the weather. The colder it gets outside, there's less real estate for sale. That's the way it goes. And you can look at charts time immemorial about that. But let's do a real estate market update for Tippecanoe County here in October of 2025. See if I get I just need to move me. Hello, me. There I go. Let's put me there. So we're going to start here in October of 2025 with inventory. And this is the big one that I want to talk about tonight. And we're going to have to put this in context with all of the rest of the data. But remember what we talk about here. And I'm looking at a 5-year look back. A lot of the charts that we look at will look back over the previous year to really show you those movements. But I really wanted to put tonight's numbers in context of what has come before. And tonight we are looking at total inventory. This is average daily inventory of homes for sale on any given day. And in September of 2025, that number was 384. If you have watched the show ever and ever heard me talk about balanced markets here in Lafayette, you've heard me toss out the number that in a balanced market there should be 300 homes for sale at any given time. Anything less than 300 is a seller's market, and anything more than 300 is a buyer's market. And the reason that I want to spend so much time on this chart specifically is look at this line. This is 300. We crossed it in about July. So about 3-ish months ago or so, we crossed north of 300, and that's the first time in more than 5 years that we have been there. And you look in the doldrums, I mean, they get down into the mid to low 80s in the middle of winter. So wow, Jeff, we're moving back to a balanced market. We might even be moving to a buyer's market where I can ask for discounts off of houses. I'm not sure that that's true just yet, and I'm not sure I wish that's true or not, because I represent both buyers and sellers, and so what's good for one is not necessarily good for another, but you know, data is data. Two things. One, in talking with some colleagues, that 300 is perhaps a little out of date, maybe a decade or more out of date of what a balanced number should look like. I think that the number is something along the lines of perhaps 400 now. Now, that being said, look at that number, September of 2025, 384. So we're almost at a balanced market using that 400 statistic. But the other thing that we have to talk about, though, is the rest of the data. This doesn't stand, this chart does not stand alone. That 384 homes for sale at any given time in September is not the only point of data. Oh my goodness, homes aren't selling. Well, let's look. Let's dig into that a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open this window and another window so I can keep this reference in front of me. Give me half a minute here. Okay. Get that one open. Hey, closed the wrong one. As we continue on through our market update here in Tippecanoe County in October of 2025, the next number that we have to look at is new listings. Check out the numbers. Well, there must be something going on here. If we look back seasonally, we can look, new listings go up through the warm months through June and then come back down December of 2021. Here is May of 22, December of 22. We can see these peaks and valleys. The amplitude is getting a little bit smaller as we go along the way, but that pattern continues. We hit the low point in December of 2024, and it climbs to May of 25 and hits the peak. I mean, it's got a little But that peak did get a little bit higher than it had back in 24 and 23 and even in 22. The last time that we came in just under that 21 was in May of 2022. So really, we're just kind of getting back to like what it looked like 4 or 5 years ago. And if we zoomed out to 10 years, like we would probably see, we would definitely see that mountain, you know, like came down. The trend line has been down over time. So it's edging up. There are slightly more homes for sale. That is part of what's driving like what the market looks like right now. It's not just, oh, homes aren't selling, they're sitting on the market and more homes coming on the market. More people have sold than have been selling in the previous months and years. And it's because I say this all of the time. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is. It doesn't matter what's going on in politics. It doesn't matter how long you've lived in a house. It doesn't matter. There's just so many things that just don't matter. People have to move. People die. People are born. People get married. People get divorced. People have kids. People's kids go to college. People get new jobs. They need to move to a new state for the new job. People have to move all of the time. Sometimes people choose to move. Yes, I have a friend who chooses to move like every 18 months. She's crazy. You know who you are. I love you, but you're crazy. Most people don't move for fun. Most people. Some people do. But people have to move. And at some point, all of those other factors just become the background noise. Interest rates, 6%. Well, you know what? If you were 22 years old when you graduated college and it's been a few years now, guess what? The interest rates, 6%. Still a few years on. That's just your reality. That's just what the interest rate is. Is it going to come down tomorrow? Boy, I'd own a lot of homes if I, made money every time somebody asked me or told me, as, stated the fact that interest rates are going to come down tomorrow, next month, the next whatever sort of things. So it's just reality. But continuing on with what does the market look like, and the fact that we have these 384 homes for sale in Tippecanoe County when a balanced market might be at about 400. The next number that we have to look at is total closed sales. And these are sales that got to the closing table. You signed your name a million times over and over and over and over and over again. And finally you own the home. In September, it was 175, almost flat with the 177 in the 2 months before. And, this is, again, the pattern is up and down with warm months and cold months. And if we look back over a 20-year and 10-year look back, those patterns happen, and we continue to drift down in the totals, but the pattern stays there. And we're actually above the pattern. Check it. I'm going to go, the low point, September, is kind of the, let's say, first quarter to halfway point of the downturn, of the seasonal downturn in all of these preceding years. This year, we've been flat since May, basically. So we climbed and then we have stayed flat. The number of homes that are closing every month is almost exactly the same. We're up 56% over last year. We're still down 29% over 5 years, but we're up 56%. We're almost flat. So we're selling almost the exact same number of homes. It's just that there are more homes coming on the market. Now, those people that are selling their homes, that means that a number of them are leaving the community, because it's not a one-to-one ratio. If you sell a home, then you're going to buy a home for the most part. And if everybody just stayed in the community, then it would be the number of sales and the number of buys would be about equal, with probably slightly more buys because people buying their first homes. But that's not the way that life works, right? People buy a new house in a new community and move somewhere because of a job, because of family, because they've fed up, because they don't want to live next door to, you name the thing. The number of sales is almost flat since May, June, July, August, September. For 5 months, it's been relatively flat. It should be slightly decreasing, and it's not yet. It will. It is right now as we speak. And the data will show that in a few weeks. So just more homes are coming on the market. More homes are coming on the market. And I'm going to continue to preach that and reiterate that as we get through our last few charts here and then get ready to call it a night. Man, I've just got a lot to say tonight. What happens when you don't have a show for a few weeks? Days on market. This is I love talking about this one. This is the number of days from the time that your house goes on the market publicly, I am for sale, to I have an accepted contract. I have an accepted offer. This is not the closing table. This is not money has changed hands. This is, yes, I agree to the terms of your sale. I love talking about West Lafayette and how it was down to 2 and 3 days. You put a house on the market on Friday, be sold by Sunday. This is all of Tippecanoe County. In September, it was 23 days. 3 weeks. It's a really, really long time. Well, in comparison to the low averages of 5 days back in April, and if we look back, the low point was in April of 23, where it was 2. Again, this is all of the county. This is not just Lafayette or West Lafayette. This is all of the county. 23, 3 weeks and 2 days. That's a long time. I would put it as it's a realistic time. Going back to what I'm talking about, the 300 homes, and it might actually be 400 today. In the past, the averages, the medians were around 28, 29, 30 days, somewhere about a month. So historically, and I'm talking, over 10, 20 years by historic, I don't mean ancient Greece, the better part of a month. Put your house on the market and you get an acceptance offer about a month later. We've just gotten so used in the last few years to this really, really hot market. Now we're just adjusting a little back towards normal here in the winter. And I anticipate it could go up a little bit more and will go up a little bit more. Again, everything we talked about, politics, national issues, that does play into it. But if you got to move, you got a job, you got a kid, you got to move. And it happens. Where will it stop? Again, I don't have a crystal ball. So don't go gambling on any of this. I think it could possibly drift up to 30 days to a month. I think it could possibly drift up even a little more than that. I think it could drift up to 40 days. It could be more. It could be less. But what we're seeing right now, I don't think is out of trend with what we would expect to see in a normal market. And what we have seen in the last half a decade, in the last 5 years, is nothing like a normal market. And a friend of mine loves to use the analogy. It's like we were speeding at 80 miles an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone, and now we're speeding at 70 miles an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone. We're still speeding. We're just not quite as illegal as we used to be. Months of inventory, this is just a quick one, just reflective. Again, it follows the pattern of everything that I've been talking about, and that is if no other houses came on the market today, how long would it take us to sell through the current inventory? We're 2.5. Again, we're approaching historically what we would call a historically balanced market, somewhere around 3-4. Again, with the number of people in our community now, the size of our community, the number of jobs here, the amount of development here, I think that like a 5-6 would not be statistically uncalled for, would be statistically out of line. So will that continue to drift up? Yeah, I think so. But I don't think it's an unhealthy number. I think we are approaching a little more balanced, and the next numbers that we're going to look at will start to bear that out a little bit. Where I've been saying that we're in this healthy market. It's the market's not cracking. It's heading towards balance. Could it tip either way tomorrow? Yeah, I don't know. Could. Sorry, my kids are being very vociferous in the background. Yes, this is my home studio, if you hadn't figured that out. Wrong screen. Median sale price. This is the median price paid for homes across all of the county. I don't think that this tells a whole lot because home values always go up. Will they always go up? There's no guarantee. Is a house an investment in the same way that a stock or a bond is? No. Can you live in a stock or a bond? No. But there's only been 3 times in the last 80 years that housing has retreated in price. And I believe 2 of those 3 times that the housing prices were back up within about a year. Did not take long at all to restore back to previous levels. So there's no guarantee, but the median price in September was $298,000 to $250,000. So call it $300,000. We drifted just a little north of 320 earlier this year, but you can see these patterns are a little less pronounced. It gets a little wider, gets a little lower in the winter, goes up a little bit in the summer. That amplitude, is not quite as wide as in some of the other statistics, but we were down around the 2s around half a decade ago, and now we're hanging out around the 320s. There's no evidence that I'm going to buy when the houses get cheaper. Would you like your house to get cheaper? Do you want me to sell your house for less? No, I don't think so. I don't think home prices are crashing. Finally, the last number I wanted to talk about is not on this report. Let me pull up another report real quick that has it. Tippecanoe County. Yep. Percent of list price is the last one I wanted to look at, and then we'll wrap up. Almost got it. Median sale price as percent of list. And this is just a 1 month look back, but it will tell the story that I needed to tell. I don't have this one quickly in a 5-year look back. This is how much did you ask for your house and how much did you actually get for it? And we'll see in September it was 95.6%. The expected range by the statistics is between 95.4 and 97.4, so it falls within that. It drifted down from a high of 99% in just a little north of 99.2% back in May. But it's been hanging out here for a year in the 97+%, 3% off. That is closing cost assistance. That is down payment, well, not down payment assistance, but repairs, that sort of thing. Those are incidentals. That is compensation. Those are things like that. That 3%. Those are the sorts of things that we're negotiating about day in and day out, and totally expect 3% to come off of the price to account for things that are that the buyers are asking for. Because in a real estate transaction, sellers are holding the asset. They're holding the thing that has value. They own the house, and that's what, everything can be leveraged against. So whether you're the seller or the buyer, buyers aren't coming to the table with, pockets full of tens of thousands of dollars. Neither do sellers in most cases have tens of thousands of dollars sitting in their pockets. It's all tied up in that real estate. So the seller has it. The buyer's paying for it through interest on the mortgage. So that 3% just represents that little bit of negotiation of like, need to help pay for this, need some closing costs, got to pay for that, and a little bit of repair. We expect 3%. That's a normal number. I'd say anything much more than 3%, you're starting to get into negotiation, like true negotiation territory, not just like the normal, like, hey, you know what? Here's 100%. We're offering you 100%, and we need some assistance with that. That's almost like de rigueur at this point. Not at 100% of transactions by any means, but in a lot of transactions, that's just like, yep, a good broker, a good agent's going to look at that and present it to their seller going, they're offering you a full price offer and they're asking for help with this, and it's within this range, and that's that's the way the market works. Again, the seller holds the asset. That's what gives access to the liquidity to help grease the wheel and pay for all of these things. Once you get past that, about roughly 3%, and in some cases, 4, 5, and 6%. Once you get much past that, then you're starting to talk about like negotiating about like, you know what, I'm not going to offer you 100%. I'm going to offer you, I'm going to take a couple $1,000s off of my ask, and I'm also still going to ask for that closing cost assistance. And so we see, again, a point in time, 95.6%, 4.4% off of the ask price. This is the beginning of the tail end of the data where I said that we're seeing more homes come onto the market, but the same amount of sales are happening. Because of that, buyers now have a few more options in front of them at any given time. It's not quite a buyer's market yet, but at getting 95.6% as opposed to 97, 98, 99%. We're talking about really small moves here. On a $300,000 house, a percent is $3,000. It ain't nothing, but it's not a ton either. We're heading into the colder months. Again, all of the trends always follow that. So is this just, part of the trend and everything will go back? Come talk to me again in April, May, and June, and we'll know a little bit more. I don't expect it to crash out tomorrow. It could. It could also crash up and go the other way. The market could constrict and people could stop selling their homes. There are a lot of couldas out there. There's no guarantees, but right now we're just kind of in that territory. It's like, maybe this will become a little bit more amenable to buyers as opposed to sellers, but it's just such a moment in time that we don't have enough data to say yes or no to that either way. But if you're one of those people that needs to move, wants to move, or wants a new home, wants to sell a home, wants to buy an investment, go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube and fill out the form. And I'd love to be your local Lafayette real estate resource of choice. Thank you for joining me here on the Lafayette Real and At Lafayette Live on a Tuesday. We'll be back with you next Monday at 7 o'clock. Thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week.